I'm Mark Q. Jones from 940 ESPN Radio. This month, PBS is presenting Ken Burns' powerful new film on the life of Jackie Robinson, the heroic African-American player who broke the color barrier in professional baseball in 1947.
One way of fighting back is to do well. You know, shut them up by hitting and not having tears in your eyes and pain in your heart, but, you know, playing well. And that was his one way of fighting back was to do well and to have his team win, and they did win. They won a lot of games.
We're here at ValleyPBS with a group of distinguished local guests and our studio audience to talk about this important documentary and to discuss Jackie Robinson's impact then and now. Please join us for Jackie Robinson, A Conversation.
Funding for Jackie Robinson is provided by Bank of America, Public Broadcasting Service, Corporation for Public Broadcasting, the Arthur Vining Davis Foundations, and the following generous donors. And a grant from WETA, Washington, D.C.
Thank you for joining us. I'm sharing the stage with 4 individuals who are each uniquely qualified to discuss the life and legacy of Jackie Robinson. First is Dr. Jim Aldredge, an icon in the Fresno community for decades, a star athlete from Edison High. Dr. Aldredge was signed to a contract with the Pittsburgh Pirates organization just 10 short years after Jackie Robinson began playing for the Brooklyn Dodgers. Next is Tom Summers. He was a Fresno State baseball standout and a Roosevelt Rough Rider in the 1960s. He went on to run minor league operations for the California Angels starting in the 70s. Also with us is Kerry Yo Nakagawa. Kerry is the founder of the Nisei Baseball Research Project, which documents the history of Japanese-American baseball starting as far back as the 1900s. And we're joined by Phil Meyer, CEO of ValleyPBS. In addition to being a student of baseball and baseball history, Phil is a coach for the Junior Grizzlies, which gives athletes with disabilities the opportunity to play baseball. Dr. Aldredge, I have to start with you. How do you think Ken Burns did on portraying the life of Jackie Robinson in this documentary?
I thought it was great. I didn't realize that he was such a force in civil rights and that he connected just before Martin Luther King. And it appeared that Martin Luther King, you know, kind of looked up to him and what he had done through baseball, but it broadened after that. And we'll see that tonight, and that's the one thing that, you know, that interested me. But the thing that got me involved in this thing called baseball was I happened to read the Pittsburgh Courier, and I saw this African-American guy, then we were calling him, you know, Negro fellows, on the front page, and it was called Double Play, and he had a baseball glove, and the story was about him on the Pittsburgh Courier, and I read it, and it said something about how much money he was earning.
Yeah.
And I said, boy, you know, I like baseball well enough, I think I'll try it. And so I just kind of stuck with it through elementary school recesses and all the rest of that. But he was the person that was the catalyst for me to even try to do it. So he was a role model for me.
It's right on point. Thanks, Dr. Aldredge. Well, we have a lot to talk about with our panel, but first we're going to take a look at a clip from the film that illustrates that Jackie Robinson's legacy is much larger than baseball.
He was an uncompromising crusader who lifted himself up from humble beginnings to become, for a time, one of the most celebrated men in America. He was a supremely gifted athlete whose skills on the ball field captivated Americans of all races, and in the process, challenged the prejudiced notions of what a black man could achieve. He was an impatient, strong-willed, and sharp-tongued competitor who nonetheless turned the other cheek to the threats and abuse he would endure, and made it possible for others to follow in his footsteps. And when he finally did fight back, he drew the scorn of fans, a once adoring press, even his own teammates. After baseball, he found new ways to use his fame to fight discrimination. But as the civil rights movement he had once seemed to embody became more militant, its demands more strident, he was accused of being out of touch. An Uncle Tom. Through it all, in a country deeply divided by race, where African Americans had few rights and fewer opportunities, he refused to accept second-class citizenship. Jackie Robinson, Martin Luther King Jr. once said, was a sit-inner before sit-ins, a freedom rider before freedom rides.
Jackie Robinson laid the foundation for America to see its black citizens as subjects and not just objects. It meant that there were 6 and 7 and 8-year-old boys who suddenly thought a black man was a hero.
We have very few weapons at our disposal to speak out against our condition, since nobody else in the society shares that condition with us. He became one of the most powerful voices we had to extricate ourselves from the evils and the pain of that history. What will you say in behalf of the needs of those of us who cannot speak or cannot have the voice that you have?
Jack was always proud of his race, held his head high, walked with a kind of a swagger. He had experienced the negatives and all of the challenges of the society. So he was ready to do something about it. And he felt he should be the one to do that.
Now, people have been saying that Jackie Robinson, of all people here in this country, you have less right to protest against what's going on than anybody that I know of. They said, Jackie Robinson, you have it made, and you ought not to be a part of this movement. And I say to you that whether you like it or not, that there is not one Negro, not one that I know in this country, that has it made until the most underprivileged Negro in St. Augustine, Florida has it made.
Dr. Aldredge, you've been on both sides. You've been in the batter's box and you've been in the community and doing all kind of work. I mean, how does this strike you to start off? And did you understand everything that he brought to the table?
Yeah, I did. After I finished baseball with an injury, I remember the time that I had the opportunity to do some kind of civil rights work, and I happened to be the first human relations director in the city of Fresno. And with Robinson being my baseball idol, I knew what he went through, because I went through some of it as a baseball player. But then came Martin Luther King, as King mentioned, but he was a real pioneer before. So some of this, I'm sure, is surprising to all of us in terms of what he really stood for.
Yeah. Well, Tom, a longtime baseball player, you played at a time where the desegregation was coming in. You had a chance to play. At that time, what was it like mixing of the group, so to speak?
Well, first, Coach, I want to say this guy right here, Jimmy Aldredge, is one of the great athletes, seriously, ever come out of Fresno, and he's the first black city manager in the history of Fresno. And in 1960 or 61 was the first year that major league players with black skin could stay in the same hotel as the rest of the ball players. And in 1966, I'm playing AA baseball in Amarillo, Texas. I'm a college boy, so I understand that there's racial problems in America, but I thought that was the South, Mississippi and Little Rock, Birmingham. And we had one black player in our ball club named Hal King, a left-handed catcher, and I roomed with him. We went into a restaurant to eat in Amarillo. They said, he can't eat here. I said, why? They said, he's colored. I said, I didn't realize that. I said, what is wrong with that? They said, this is the South, we don't serve colored. And to this day, that embarrasses me and really makes me angry that that happened at that time. But I was unaware of that because I had not experienced that myself. So it was difficult. And I can't imagine that one of the greatest athletes of all time being Jackie Robinson, baseball, football, basketball, track at UCLA. And he was either 26 or 28 when he got to the big leagues, been in World War II. And that's what Mr. Rickey liked about him. He was tough. He'd been around a lot of people. He felt he could handle the abuse. There had to be a lot of abuse that he had to go through on and off the field.
Wow. Kerry, I mean, you have a unique perspective on this from a different angle.
Well, my uncle, Q, pitched against Jackie Robinson in 1937. He was on the Santa Maria Junior College baseball team. They went to Pasadena, JC, and Jackie was their shortstop. And so I asked my uncle, I said, Uncle Lefty, Nishijima, what was it like, you know, facing Jackie? He goes, well, I faced him 3 times, and he took me deep twice. And I said, it's okay, Uncle Lefty. I said, he's a Hall of Famer. He goes, no, Kerry. He goes, I'm really happy I helped Jackie's career. I gave him a lot of confidence. So that's just one of, and we have another player, Shig Takayama, grew up with Jackie in Pasadena, and he would sew their mitts because he had this ability. Both parents couldn't afford a brand new mitt, so he used to sew them up. And they played from junior high all the way to Pasadena Junior College. So, and then getting to meet Sharon, we were both consultants on Baseball as America. His Jackie's daughter, and so to be with Sharon, Buck O'Neill, Roberto Clemente Jr., 6 different times for Baseball as America, it was really an amazing blessing to be with those guys.
Wow. Phil, you're a historian on this type of stuff. What do you think about it?
I was struck by Harry Belafonte's comment, what are you going to say for the people who have no voice? And my involvement with baseball, I grew up a generation after these guys, and my favorite players were Ernie Banks and Willie Mays and Roberto Clemente. So to me, all that racial part of it had dropped away. But then my wife and I had 3 children, one of whom has autism. Then all of a sudden he doesn't have the chance to participate. So I've been involved in what's called adapted baseball, which opens up opportunities for people with physical or developmental disabilities to enjoy the sport that we all love. And you really see the joy of the game, because that may be the only opportunity they have to participate with everybody else. And I think Jackie, in his way, got that started.
And we'll see in the documentary that someone with disability talks about how he related with his father on that. And that is a unique perspective of just breaking down biases all over the place.
Exactly.
In his film. You know, Kerry, you talked about Pasadena with your family. What is, you know, that is a unique area to go to. And he talks in the film a little bit about the gangs and how they hung out and how they played. Any other perspective from your family members about that?
Well, to finish the Shig story, he remembers coming, you know, when I met Sharon, I told her, I'd like to share with you the story that Shig Takayama shared with me, and he grew up with your dad. And they came to Fresno on their way to San Francisco to play San Francisco City, and the Fresno hotel, they were passing out the room keys, and the owner said, you know, he can't stay here, pointing to Jackie, and also to Shig, and he goes, and he can't either. And so it was, you know, 1937, right? And so he said, well, we're a team, so we'll take all the keys and leave. Then we all either stay here as a team or, he goes, well, I got a room especially for those 2 then, because economically he needed the money. So he put Jackie and Shig in this little storage closet and put 2 cots in there. And Shig told me that when they went to shut off the light, he could see Jackie near the window with tears coming down his cheek. And so the discrimination was, it was too bad. I told Sharon, I said, you know, Fresno really wasn't like that. It was probably just this owner, but it's a shame that this happened in our town in 1937, and especially to see how it affected Jackie so much.
Wow, interesting story. And Tom, could you imagine, or Dr. Aldredge, could you imagine that he came through Fresno? Did you guys know that?
I did not know that, no. But You know, he was a unique guy, and Jimmy and I were talking earlier. I didn't know about all the civil rights stuff until recently that he was so involved with. I mean, he was a complete individual. And when you look at him on the screen, you know, we all think of Jackie Robinson being a great runner, and he was, but he was strong. He could swing that bat. He hit for some thunder. So he was a well-built guy. So when he slid into second base with you, he hit you pretty hard.
Doc, you're a strong athlete as well, so you know about those tough slides.
Yeah, well, yeah. One time I didn't duck and I got it in the eye, but anyway. Robinson, I played with some of the players from the Negro American League and the Negro Leagues when I played, and that was in I started in 1957. And I talked to them about, you know, what was happening in the Negro Leagues, and they had that opportunity from Jackie Robinson to come over into the minor league programs that were available. And
Coach, one of the things that happened as a result of that is the style of baseball changed completely with Jackie Robinson. So the stolen base and putting pressure on the fielders and taking the extra base, just the base running alone.
Everything changed.
Everything changed. The whole game changed.
Jack's talents on the baseball diamond so impressed his classmates that they offered to share their lunches with him if he chose to play on their team. His older brother, Mac, earned a place on the 1936 U.S. Olympic track and field team that competed in Berlin. He outran Hitler's Aryan sprinters and finished behind only Jesse Owens in the 200-meter dash. But when he came home to Pasadena, the only work Mac Robinson could find was as a street sweeper.
If it had been a different time, you know, Mac Robinson might have become a great celebrity. There just weren't many opportunities. And he would wear his Olympic jacket while he cleaned the streets.
In 1937, Jack Robinson enrolled at Pasadena Junior College. He was outstanding in every sport he played and began to make a name for himself in the Los Angeles area. But he was also getting a reputation as a troublemaker. After a basketball game against all-white Long Beach, an opposing player threw a punch at him in frustration. Robinson hit back. The player went down, and the gym erupted into a melee. A few days later, when a Pasadena police officer overheard Jack and a friend singing a popular song, Flatfoot Flugee, he took offense and threw them in jail. Later, Jack and some friends were insulted by a white man who had pulled up alongside their car. A crowd gathered.
Then all of a sudden, there was a whine of a siren, and a motorcycle cop wobbled his machine through the crowd. He pulled out his revolver and began yelling. I found myself up against the side of my car with a gun barrel pressed unsteadily into the pit of my stomach. I was scared to death.
Robinson was arrested again. But he never gave in. In Pasadena, he moved down from the segregated balcony of the movie theater onto the main floor. And when the staff behind a Woolworth's lunch counter was reluctant to serve him, he stayed on his stool until someone did. Jack's success at sports made him a sought-after recruit among the few four-year colleges that would even consider a black player. An alumnus of all-white Stanford University offered to pay his college tuition at any school where he would not play against Stanford. Jack turned him down and chose nearby UCLA. Arriving on campus, Robinson discovered that while the athletic programs recruited some black athletes, the student population was less than 1% African American. There was not a single black faculty member. But on the football field, Robinson was immediately at home. In a game at the University of Washington, Robinson returned a punt 65 yards, earning a standing ovation from the opposing fans. Trailing Oregon late in another game, Robinson ran 23 yards for 1 touchdown, then dashed 83 yards to score again. I guess you've got to have a mechanized cavalry unit to stop this guy, Oregon's coach complained. The press began to call him Jackie. That winter, Jack starred on the basketball team. In the spring, he won the NCAA title in the broad jump and started at shortstop on the baseball team. By the end of his first full year, he had lettered in 4 varsity sports.
You could make an argument that Jackie Robinson was the greatest athlete in American history. His ability as a basketball player, as a track star, as a baseball player, as a football player. Jackie Robinson could have been a star in every single one of those sports. Not just a good player, but a superstar.
Well, we're going to take a question from the audience out, ma'am.
Michelle Allison, Community Advisory Board from Merced County. Jackie Robinson had a lot of challenges prior to starting with baseball. When do you think society made the change to receive him and accept him and love him for all that he had brought to baseball?
Wow, good question.
I think that was for a long time. I mean, there were people obviously that admired his great ability as a baseball player, but he wasn't well received by even some of his own ball players. So I think it took many, many years, maybe after his career was really over, where he was really, truly appreciated for who he was and what he had done.
I think it comes in stages. So when the Dodgers added Don Newcomb and Roy Campanella, I think that was the first stage when it wasn't just Jackie by himself. I think when you see the influx of Willie Mays, Hank Aaron, Ernie Banks, that era of ball player, and then with Frank Robinson, the first African-American manager in the 70s, but really it doesn't occur until on April 15th, every player in the major leagues wears number 42.
I think it started when he crossed the line as a major leaguer in 1947. You know, there's clips of Jackie being pelted with coins and throwing a black cat onto the field, but when he steals home, those same people that were booing him, now all of a sudden we're giving him a standing O and applauding. So I think he broke down barriers and changed perceptions when he took the field. Now, outside the lines, it got a lot blurrier, but from my perspective, I think he really changed the people's attitudes and perceptions.
Doc?
Well, kind of editorial. I knew a little bit about Jackie Robinson because the individual, and you know him, Bob Fontaine, who signed me to a Pittsburgh contract, was the roommate of Jackie Robinson, and he used to kind of warn me about what I probably would be facing when I went down, you know, south and so forth to play, and that became very, very true. Just one incident, and it was a kind of a shocker to me, though he had already prepped me on it, and it related to 4 African-American players being asked out of the St. Francis Hotel in Reno, Nevada, 1957, and told us to go down and eat at the bus station. But I got the warning from Bob Fontaine, the scout that signed me from Pittsburgh.
Wow, thank you.
He was his roommate.
Thank you.
Oh, by the way, I'm impressed by the fact that you were the roommate of the only African-American person on your team. Where was that?
And I played for El Paso, yeah. I didn't see color. I played with black athletes in Fresno, and to me that was no big thing. It was just an automatic thing for me.
Yeah, good. Okay.
We got one more question from the audience.
My name is Dan Golden. Aside from his athletic prowess, which was excellent, I believe that one of the things that many people don't realize, that his strong character was a very, very strong force in his ability to succumb to all of those things. How do you compare his ability to do that compared to today's athlete.
And that's Dan Golden. He was the first African-American sportscaster here in Fresno. So thank you, Dan, for coming up.
That's a good question.
He should be asking good questions.
No, I think his character. This is almost like a political answer, but his character played a tremendous amount to his success. And the athlete today, quite honestly, they don't know much about what he stood for and what he did. It is a little vexing at times that some of the folks that are in the major leagues right now don't know who Jackie Robinson is and how they even got there and what he went through. And I'll tell you, he went through a lot and he suffered a lot. And in the clip, you'll see where he wanted to quit a couple of times and he hung in there. Had he quit, then there wouldn't have been that opportunity for African Americans, certainly as soon as it was there, for them to benefit from his athletic ability.
It was my mother's idea. We would have had a small wedding and been finished with it. She wanted me to have the gown, the biggest church in Los Angeles, and all the flowers and everything. I put a dress away at Saks Fifth Avenue and paid on it for a year before I could afford to take it out. But we did have a grand wedding.
On February 10th, 1946, Jackie and Rachel were married at the Independent Church of Christ in Los Angeles. A few weeks later, the newlyweds prepared to leave for spring training in Daytona Beach, Florida, where Jackie was to try out for the Montreal Royals. Branch Rickey had invited Rachel to join him there, the only wife allowed at Dodgers camp. They were to fly to Daytona Beach, with stopovers in New Orleans and Pensacola, Florida, along the way.
We never really had a honeymoon. We went to our first spring training on our honeymoon. It was terrible. We were bumped from 2 planes to getting there. And fortunately, Mally had met us at the airport with a shoebox full of fried chicken, and she said, "Take this on with you, you may need it." We were embarrassed. We were bumped in New Orleans, we were bumped in Pensacola, Florida, and white passengers were put on in our place. I'd never seen signs on restrooms, on water faucets, and that kind of thing. So I went into the white ladies' bathroom just so I could recover my own sense of myself. And I walked into there and did what I had to do and nodded at the ladies and walked out. We finally took a bus to spring training from Jacksonville on our honeymoon. We went to the back of the bus. And when it got dark, I started to cry because I had felt my great husband, who had been a fighter and a dignified person, had been reduced by discrimination and by segregation. And he had sort of caved in to what the society wanted in the South. But the fried chicken was great.
Well, it's amazing how love life and family can really impact your career. Before we get a question from the audience, any comments on that last little piece?
Well, the thing about character again, Coach, you know, Branch Rickey had really checked out a lot of ball players, and Jackie had great ability, but like we talked about earlier, there were some other better black players, but Jackie was a tough kid, and they needed someone who was tough and mature to hang in there for all the abuse they were going to take.
Kerry, you were talking about a conversation you had with Buck Neal?
Yeah, Buck always would say that Satchel Paige, who was one of the greatest pitchers ever, probably, and Josh Gibson, one of the greatest catchers ever in black baseball history, probably had better ability than Jackie, but Jackie was the right guy. Jackie was able to handle the negative mentality at the ballparks, where Satchel and Josh probably wouldn't have been able to. Jackie was a veteran during World War II. He was college educated. Rachel, everybody loved Rachel, and so Branch Rickey really probably made the right choice.
And one of the scouts in the film tells a story that they sat in the stands with Rachel Robinson and came back to Branch Rickey and said, if he's smart enough to marry her, then he's your guy.
Doc, that takes some smarts, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's right.
Let's take a question from the audience.
Craig Reed. I grew up in Montclair, New Jersey, and my father was very close friends with Monty Irvin, who was, I think, the second or third black player in the National League. And my best friend, his father was best friends with Larry Doby. I think he was the first black player in the American League. And they talked about the fact that Jackie Robinson, whereas Martin Luther King got shot and was assassinated, that Jackie Robinson's a freedom fighter. You see how Rachel still looks, his wife and everything. They said that he basically died. There are a lot of people, they didn't say this, I'm not going to quote them, they're both dead now, but there's a tremendous theory they felt that I want you to comment on, that he died young. He gave his life for civil rights for Major League Baseball because he was healthy, vibrant, strong, great personality and character. He died much, much earlier before his time.
He died at age 53.
Yes, you think that's possible?
I think it's possible, and the film touches on that in the last chapter, that he was so disillusioned with his impact in the 60s and into the early 70s. He had health problems, starting to gain weight, diabetes, and passed away at 53. And Rachel also talks about how he was less of a man at that point, that he was diminished in her eyes, that experience had just worn him down, and eventually his health deteriorated to the point that he passed away.
But I heard the stress also. The stress on him is that he had to go through.
Notice in the clips from the 60s, his hair is already white.
That's it, yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Craig. That's Craig Reed, a Columbia graduate, Ivy League graduate. So, you know, he's going to ask a good question, a former sports announcer here in town.
We got one more question.
We've got one more question. Let's take the question from the young lady.
Hi, my name is Diva de la Torre, and I'm 17, and I just wanted to know what it was like to be a person of color at my age.
Back in that time, what do you think, Doc?
Well, I had the opportunity to sign a professional baseball contract at Edison High School when I was 17 years old. That was my first year to play. And what it amounted to was the choice or the decision to play, and there were some things that had come about. I could have gone on to college, but I chose to play professional baseball, and I was in kind of culture shock because I had to leave home to go play. So I left Fresno, and I wound up being on the road as a professional baseball player, and the orientation that Bob Fontaine, who was, as I mentioned earlier, Jackie Robinson's roommate in Montreal, had told me about, the travel and all the rest of it. But what he really emphasized was the fact that you are African American and you're going to run into some real problems. And there are a couple of times that, and I was an outfielder, from the outfield, they would say the N-word, and you'd have to just kind of bear it. In terms of that, then at the age of 18, find yourself in a segregated situation in spring training in Florida, where the white players were up front on the beach, and we were out back as African American players, as well as folks from the Caribbean and so forth. And it was a shock, but and it was tough. It was tough because it was real special. And you have to make up your mind you're going to stick with it, because there were a number of times I felt like coming home too.
Tell about your experience in Tri-Cities, Washington.
Oh yeah, after I got hurt at the age of 18, I'm not cool. These are shades that I got hit in the eye, so you can, that's why I'm wearing the shade. But in the state of Washington, there was a team by the name of Tri-City Braves. I played for them, and I wanted to live close to the ballpark in Kennewick, Washington. asked the general manager there, and he said, no, you can't, because they won't allow blacks there. Then I asked about Richland, Washington, and he said no. And when I wound up living someplace, it was in Pasco, Washington. And it was a ghetto, barrio kind of a place. And that's disheartening. And the interesting thing is that when I played for them, it was me hitting cleanup. That's the toughest one, you know, hitting fourth. And I got this pressure and all the rest of it, and you didn't quite feel accepted, you know, by the fans. But then you keep playing, and then pretty soon they start to, you know, clap for you. But there's a real test in there. And that's a real test for young folks now, you know, to even if you're going to go on to higher education, college or something, it's a change. It's not like being pampered when you're 16 and 15 and at home.
That spring, Rachel had learned that she was pregnant. She kept the news to herself for a time so that Jackie could focus on baseball. Montreal fans welcomed Robinson, but on the road, opposing fans and players were less kind. Pitchers aimed at his head. Base runners tried to spike him with their cleats. Crowds rained down abuse.
I was overestimating my stamina and underestimating the beating I was taking. I couldn't sleep and often couldn't eat. The doctor was afraid I was going to have a nervous breakdown. He advised me to take a brief rest. Doctor's orders or not, I just couldn't keep my mind off baseball.
In Baltimore, Rachel sat in front of an angry white fan who screamed about that nigger son of a bitch.
And I'd sit up tall and kind of, you know, try to fend it off. I was very protective, probably more than I needed to be.
In Syracuse, an opposing player threw a black cat onto the field, calling out, "Hey, Jackie, here's your cousin."
My father's furious, gets up to bat, hits a double. On the next person up at bat, my father comes home. He looks over at his opponents and says, "Hey, I guess my cousin's happy now."
In spite of the pressure, Jackie played brilliantly, finishing the season with a league-leading .349 batting average. Montreal won the pennant by 18.5 games, their best season ever. The Royals traveled to Kentucky to face the Louisville Colonels in the Minor Leagues World Series. For the first 3 games, with fans hurling insults, Robinson struggled at the plate. The Colonels took 2 of the first 3. But back in Montreal, Jackie started to hit again. In Game 5, he had a double and a triple and scored twice. He got 2 more hits in Game 6 as the Royals beat the Colonels to win what was called the Little World Series. Ecstatic Montreal fans wouldn't let Robinson leave the stadium.
Jack was dressed and came out of the clubhouse, and a mob picked him up on their shoulders and ran down the street singing and celebrating him.
It was probably the only day in history, wrote Sam Moulton in the Pittsburgh Courier, that a black man ran from a white mob with love instead of lynching on its mind. Jackie's first season in the minors had been an overwhelming success. The Robinsons returned to Los Angeles, where in November, Rachel gave birth to a son, Jack Roosevelt Robinson, Jr. They had survived the roller coaster of 1946, but they still didn't know whether Jackie had a future with the Dodgers.
Mr. Rickey sent Buzzy Bavasi to Montreal to see Jackie in his first year in the minors. And Buzzy happened to sit in the area where the wives were. Rachel was in the group. When Buzzy saw her, listened to her, and realized she herself was a college graduate and very intelligent, very classy person. He went back and said to Mr. Rickey, if Jackie was smart enough to pick her for his wife, he's the guy you want.
Knock me a kiss, you never miss, when I'm ready to go. But if you can't smile and say yes, please don't cry and say no.
I think anytime you're involved in an endeavor that involves enormous stress, finding yourself questioned in terms of whether you should be where you are, to be able to go back and have refuge with someone who you know loves you and you know has your back, that's priceless.
Just being able to find that solace and that peace to withstand all the negative energy, it's hard to do that alone. So there's nothing more important than family than a real partnership, which is probably what made him such a great man, because he had the judgment to find a partner that, well, I think it's true. I mean, I think that's a sign of his character, that he chose a woman that was his equal. I don't think you would have had Jackie Robinson without Rachel.
All right, let's take a question from the audience.
Yes, my name is Thomas Keys. I can remember growing up as a young man and coming home and finding my parents huddled around the radio, listening to the Dodgers play. And as I grew older, I understood their pride of Jackie Robinson, all those great Dodger players. My question is to everybody, anyone on the panel, and it always goes back to the comparison of players of back in that day and players today. Do the players today have the same obligation to speak up for those that don't have a voice in society, for the wrongs that go on, or can they just say, I'm just a player?
Absolutely. I think you need to speak up and speak your piece and take a stand. Jackie did that, and some of the great athletes today have done that. You might get crucified for doing that, but I think you need to do that.
Thank you.
I would add to that there's more voices now. So if you think mid-40s, early 50s, NFL was just getting started. The NBA was really minor league at that point. Hockey was 6 teams and mostly in Canada. So he had such a spotlight on him because baseball was what everybody talked about nationwide. So he just had he had a larger megaphone than anyone else.
Now, would you say that's true? Also, you had Joe Louis back then at that time that had come in. He had a different personality, different education, different thing on that point.
But there was a perception then that boxing was just a step above hooliganism, that it wasn't the major league sport that baseball was. So you see these champs in boxing and some other sports, track and field, Jesse Owens, but it's not really until Jackie takes his position in the nation's pastime that you really start to see those doors opening up.
I think it's rare to see players today that are based in history and are standing on the shoulders of players like Jackie Robinson and many others that had to endure tremendous sacrifice and hardships. But I think the advantage of today's players is that they have Twitter, Instagram. Everything is immediate on the internet. Whatever they say gets viral. A little different back in the 40s, to have newspapers and radio. But my hopes is that more of these players realize how much they're standing on the shoulders of these pioneers and making multi-millions of dollars when these players back in the 40s and 50s were playing it basically for the love of the game.
Doc, you have a unique perspective on this. We've had Muhammad Ali come in the 60s, and he was very vocal. And then now we just coming through the Michael Jordan era, and he was not vocal at all, where you had the Jim Browns, Muhammad Ali's talking. What is your perspective on that feeling of it? Should they speak out on issues pertaining to race and society?
Yeah, I think there's that obligation because they got there as it relates to somebody else's sacrifice, and that's where history is really important for those young folks that are playing the game now to recognize what he went through. and all the discrimination he, dealt with and so forth. So, yeah, I think they have an obligation. When they can speak to an issue, then they need to speak to it, because anything less than that is cheating the whole class.
Have we become too money-oriented on this? Is it worried about the wrong stuff?
I think the sport should reflect the country. We should have the makeup of ethnicities of our country. So I was talking in the break that you went for a long time without any Japanese-American baseball players, and the Latin Americans were right behind African Americans. So South Koreans. So we'll start to see baseball and other sports look much more like the spectators that are watching.
You got to give the Dodgers some real credit too. They took a real chance, but again, they did their homework on Jackie Robinson, and I'm sure he wasn't the only player they considered. But they felt like he was the right guy because of all the considerations and the characteristics, his background, his age, his military. They took a gamble. They took a real big gamble. Branch Rickey took a stand, and he stood for something that was good, and he said, we're going to sign this kid.
Doc, you brought a perspective in being signed and having to go to the South. Is California so unique at that time that when you go into the South, you go, wow, this is all, did it really take a California guy? Would that have been the only player that could have really done that?
No, it was very interesting. In 1959, when I was playing a Pacific Coast League, I went to Brawley, California. And I don't know, folks here probably remember Dick Bass, the football player. Well, his brother Norman was there, and another fellow by the name of Chico Valentine. We went to spring training in Brawley because that was kind of the Cactus League. You'd go over to Arizona and play, and so forth. And I remember this one when I reported to spring training that I had taken a bus down there, got off the bus, and went into the hotel. And the white players were standing around, and Larry Jansen from the San Francisco Giants, he was a pitching coach up there. Yeah, I know you know Larry. He came out to meet me and said, follow him. And I thought he was taken to my room.
Yeah.
And in Brawley, California, in 1959, we went right through the foyer and then out to the back parking lot. He put me in the car. And I said, well, where are we going? I thought maybe they had another big suite for me or something,
Yeah.
And he took me over to Mr. and Mrs. Calloway's house in African-American couple. I lived there. A block down the road was Norman Bass and Chico Valentine in Brawley, California, 1959. In spring training down there.
Wow.
So you suffer, you kind of get it, and it kind of gets to you. And so we had this bond, the three of us, walking. Nobody picked us up.
Yeah.
It was about a half-hour walk, and we weren't doing a lot of cursing, but we were speaking loud. Look, we're going to show them we can really play, and don't give up, and we got to take it, and so forth. But it's kind of interesting though, in the era that I came out of back then, and the film speaks to it, is that a lot of the managers and so forth for major leagues were from down south.
Yeah.
Kirby Farrell from Cleveland and so forth. So you had that in the leadership of those teams. You just had to be better.
One way of fighting back is to do well. Shut them up by hitting and not having tears in your eyes and pain in your heart, but, playing well. And that was his one way of fighting back was to do well and to have his team win, and they did win. They won a lot of games.
Jackie took black baseball to the major leagues.
See, at the time, baseball was a base-to-base thing. You hit the ball, you wait on first base till somebody hit it again. See, but in our baseball, you got on base. If you walked, you stole second, you try to steal, they bunch you over to third, and you actually scored runs without a hit. This was our baseball.
The steal, the sacrifice, the daring base running, the steal of home, things that have not been seen to any great effect in Major League Baseball for 2 decades, were back. And when you combine speed with power, you have the beginning of the modern game.
Everybody else just took their lead off the base. Jackie made it theater. You couldn't take your eyes off him, and neither could the pitcher.
And he had what I call quick speed. That's why he's a good base stealer. He'd take 2 steps and he was full speed.
He was not only fast, but he was wise, and he knew when to steal. He knew when to take the extra base. Stealing home demands perfect timing. You can't go a second too late or a second too early, and he could do it.
Jackie's nimble, Jackie's quick. Jackie's making the turnstiles click, wrote Wendell Smith. Across the league, fans began turning out in record numbers to see Robinson and the Dodgers. Half of the 27,000 fans filling Crosley Field to see Jackie's first game in Cincinnati were black, many having made long trips by bus or train to cheer on Brooklyn's first baseman.
All these people coming from Memphis, black people coming from Little Rock on the fried chicken specials, sleeping on benches outside the train station, sleeping on the ground. They loved the Dodgers and Jackie Robinson.
The score seemed almost incidental. What did Jackie do? If ever the owners thought that it would hurt attendance, they were dead wrong.
For Robinson's Chicago debut, 46,572 fans had jammed Wrigley Field, while another 20,000 milled about outside, unable to find a ticket. It was the largest paid crowd ever to see a Cubs game at Wrigley. And in Brooklyn, ecstatic fans from across the borough embraced their new hero.
Well, good stuff. Changing the game of baseball, different style of play. It's our last clip with this first panel, so anything you want to share on this?
I just think it's a remarkable thing, a remarkable story. I don't think it's something you can hear enough of. I think we need to continue to hear that to realize where we've been and where we can be someday.
Q, everything I do as a multimedia person is to break down barriers and change perceptions. And I think Jackie Robinson, everything he did inside the lines and even outside the lines was to break down barriers and change perceptions and to really focus on humanity. You know, we're all connected somehow, no matter what color our skin is, what faith we belong to. So that's one thing I always take with me, and knowing Jackie's daughter, Sharon, and his history and what Buck had told me on so many occasions. So I'm real proud that I've been able to kind of just break down barriers and change perceptions, but through a multimedia way.
And as the parent of a child with a disability, I see it starting with Jackie, but managing a public television station, I'm so proud that we can bring this to the Central Valley and help people remember or learn about somebody that they knew nothing about with this film.
You know, at that time, Tom, I wanted to ask you, you were a scout. Race, did it ever come into play when you were from your organization?
Absolutely not. I looked for the best athlete, the guy with the best tools. Didn't matter what color he was or what background he came from, the best athlete.
And Doc, you know, you were, when you were drafted, was it one of those things where you thought, how am I going to leave from the west side of Fresno to go into this big world? Was it a major shock for you?
Yeah, and once again, Bob Fontaine helped me because I was only 17. I graduated from Edison when I was 16 and then played, you know, that next year. And it was really a shock. But the first place we did go for spring training was with the old Hollywood stars, and it was in Los Angeles, and that wasn't too bad. But everything after that got kind of tough.
It got kind of tough.
Yeah.
I want to thank you. We didn't have enough time to get all the great stories from you, Phil, Kerry, Tom, and Doc.
Yeah.
All great stuff, working on it, touching lives in many different ways. Thanks to our panel and to you, our audience, for being with us for Jackie Robinson, a conversation discussion. For ValleyPBS, I'm Mark Q. Jones.
Funding for Jackie Robinson is provided by Bank of America, Public Broadcasting Service, Corporation for Public Broadcasting, the Arthur Vining Davis Foundations, and the following generous donors. And a grant from WETA, Washington, D.C.